As always, we waited to be one of the last teams to release a roster, but finally, for this, the most important international window of them all, Canada has released their World Cup roster. 26-man roster, 3 goalkeepers, 7 asterisk defenders, 8 midfielders, 8 asterisk forwards, because Davies and Buchanan are both listed as forwards but can both play fullback. Canada has finally released their roster for the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar, which kicks off this Friday. And so I'm here to break down this roster, looking at what leagues and what countries these players play their domestic football in, because as always, judging off of the level of leagues that the players on a team play in, you can see the quality of teams. So I'm going to go do the roster breakdown of where these players play in, and then I am going to do my predicted starting 11 for Canada. So first off, this Canada roster, everyone is either in MLS or Europe. No more random guys scattered around in like random Central American or, in Daniil's Henry case the last couple of years, Korea leagues. No, now everyone is either in a UEFA league or in Major League Soccer. And so the original breakdown between MLS and Europe is 11 guys in MLS and 15 in Europe. Starting off on the MLS side of the bracket, the 11 MLS players are split between 4 teams in Major League Soccer. Mostly Montreal and TFC and 2 in other. We have 6 players who play for the Montreal Impact, consisting of Alistair Johnston, Kamal Miller, Ishmael Kone, James Pantemis, Samuel Piette, and Joel Waterman. 3 players in TFC in Mark Anthony Kay, Jonathan Osorio, and Richie Larea. And then we have 2 other remaining Major League Soccer guys. One is Lucas Cavallini, who's the designated player striker for the Vancouver Whitecaps, and the other is Minnesota United goalkeeper Dane St. Clair. Usually the 3 Canadian teams make up the vast majority of MLS players on the Canadian national team roster. This tournament is no exception, except for the weird lack of Vancouver Whitecaps talent on this squad. The Whitecaps typically have had a larger number of Canadians on the national team, but this year it's down to just Cavallini. Also of note, 2 of the players representing CF Montreal, Joel Waterman and James Pantemis, both are former Canadian Premier League players. So those are the first 2 former Canadian Premier League players who are going to a FIFA World Cup. Moving on over to the European side of things, it is a very well-rounded group of leagues and divisions being represented from Europe on this Canadian national team. Of the 15 players on the Canadian national team who play in Europe, they represent a very wide range of national league systems and leagues over in Europe. A total of 10 different European National League systems are represented on this Canadian national team, and 11 different leagues across Europe are being represented on this Canadian national team going to the World Cup, distributed as follows, with players playing in Belgium, Turkey, Portugal, France, Germany, England, Serbia, Greece, Scotland, and Switzerland. It is a huge variety of international talent on this Canadian national team. And of the Gold Cups and World Cup now that I've done this sort of video format for Canada for, this is by far the most diverse group of leagues the Canadian national team has ever been represented by. So the breakdown in these leagues are as follows. 3 players in Belgium, 2 Tajon Buchanan and Kyle Larin playing for Club Bruges in the first division, and Liam Fraser playing in the second division. 2 players in the Turkish Super League being Sam Adekugbi and Atiba Hutchinson. 2 players in the Portuguese top division represented by Steven Eustáquio, who plays for Porto, and Steven Vitoria, the 2 Stevens playing in Portugal. France also represented by 2 different players, both both strikers Ike Ugbo and of course Lille's Jonathan David. Germany, we have one player from, I think we all know who that is, Alphonso Davies of Bayern Munich. England, we also have one player from, Junior Hoilett, who plays for Reading in the Championship, the second division in England. Serbia, we have of course Milan Borjan, the Red Star Belgrade keeper. From Greece, we have Derek Cornelius, who is there on loan from the Vancouver Whitecaps. In Scotland, we have David Wotherspoon, who's been a lifelong player in the Scottish Premiership. And from Switzerland, we have Liam Miller. A wide variety of leagues being represented here, but also through the two Club Brugge guys in Larin and Buchanan, and then in Porto's Eustáquio and Bayern's Alphonso Davies. Canada also has 4 guys who are not only in the Champions League, but all going to the Champions League round of 16. Positional breakdown, the roster looks like this. Domestically in Major League Soccer, 2 out of the 3 goalkeepers play in MLS, 4 out of the 7 defenders. Of course, we're counting Buchanan and Davies as forwards as they were in the roster release. 4 out of the 8 midfielders are domestic, and only 1 of the 8 forwards are domestic, being Lucas Cavallini. This is a pretty standard distribution for the Canadian national team, as you get more forward, you get the more creative attacking players, which are more likely to be picked up abroad as they're just more flashy. And typically teams are more willing to spend international roster spot and international player money on attacking players. But we have reached a point where we are getting more players out of Europe than we are domestically, which, seeing as we're in the World Cup, makes sense. So that is the roster breakdown. But now I know what you're all thinking, and what I've been thinking for a long time too. What is the predicted starting 11 for Canada going into this World Cup? Well, here's what I have. I am looking at a 3-4-3. Milan Borjan in net. Obviously, he's the first choice, especially with Crépeau hurt. It just even more solidifies himself there. Back 3 of Kamal Miller, Stephen Vittoria, and Alistair Johnston. Those 3 have been just the rock of the Canadian defense throughout the whole qualifying campaign. They're the back 3. Adekugbe and Buchanan as wing backs / wide midfielders. Adekugbe just really came into his own in the World Cup qualifiers for Canada and just passed Richie Laryea for that spot. And I think with Larrea's recent form, Adekugbe is the one to slot in. Tajon Buchanan on the right side. He is just lights out, one of Canada's best players. He definitely is in this spot. The 2 central midfielders, Jonathan Osorio, who has just been absolutely excellent this year, both for club and country, and Steven Eustáquio, who is on fire right now for Porto, being one of the most dangerous midfielders in the Portuguese league at the moment. And then the front 3, this is pretty much obvious. Alphonso Davies on the left side, Jonathan David in the center, and then Kyle Larin on the right. This is basically the unstoppable trio for Canada, and we'll see if they can get the job done in Qatar. So there you have it. That is the Canada roster breakdown and starting 11 prediction for this World Cup. Canada now plays their first game on the 23rd, which is next Wednesday against Belgium. That should be a great match. I honestly can't believe we're playing Belgium. We get a warm-up game against Japan on Thursday to see how things are. Maybe we'll get a peek at what could be the starting 11 then. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with this team. They have really no expectations on them other than just don't get completely blown out. So it should be fun, and I'm really excited to see what they can do on the world stage. That is for this video. As always, if you'd like to hit like, if you want to see more of my stuff, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, link is down below in the description, and I will see you next time.